So every day, doctors choose an antibiotic that they think will save their patient's life, just to find out days later that it doesn't actually work. So I'm Dr. Kalen Hall. I've spent the last 6 years trying to understand how bacteria mutate to become antibiotic resistant. And this is my co-founder, Dr. Leo Williams, who has spent the last 8 years trying to understand how patterns of mutations can tell us how a cell is behaving. So we, during our time together at Tulane, actually invented a way where we can actually solve this problem. So does anyone know who this is? I'll give you a hint, it's not our third co-founder. So this is Alexander Fleming. So he discovered penicillin in 1928. So before Fleming discovered penicillin, the top causes of death in the US were all bacterial infections. So think pneumonia, diarrheal disease. And nowadays, it's something you don't even worry about when you get one of those. So unfortunately, we are hurtling towards repeating history and going back to the pre-Fleming ages. And the WHO predicts that by 2050, antibiotic-resistant infections are going to be the leading cause of death globally. And that is because bacteria are evolving new antibiotic resistance faster than we're making new drugs. The other thing that's really striking about this picture is that if you had a life-threatening infection in a hospital today, they would still be using the same petri dishes that Fleming used to discover penicillin to try to figure out how to treat you. And that's super problematic for a lot of reasons, but the reason that we focus on is because this is taking a very static and reactive approach to an incredibly dynamic infection. So if you were that patient who had a life-threatening infection, they would basically take a sample of your infection and then send it to their lab, use those petri dishes, and figure out what drug is what we call susceptible, and so what drug would use to work to treat you. But the problem with that is that bacteria are always growing. And in a patient, they can actually acquire new resistance to that drug. So by the time that they give you those antibiotics, it actually doesn't work anymore. And then it could lead to treatment failure, sepsis, and a lot of times even death. This is incredibly common. It's something that we call treatment emergent resistance. It impacts a lot of immunocompromised or high-risk patients, and it costs hospitals billions of dollars every single year. Our field largely thinks that susceptibility is the finish line when we're treating patients, but we founded Informuta on the idea that it's just the beginning. So when all tests just tell doctors what's susceptible now, we actually can forecast everything that happens after that and tell doctors when treatment emergent resistance is going to happen, basically give them like a crystal ball into their treatment decisions. We're founded on the belief that we can transform antibiotic decision-making from this reactive static approach into predictive and proactive and preventative. The way this works is basically hospitals can send us to our central lab any infection type, whether it be pneumonia, blood, urine, wound, etc. We then sequence the bacterial DNA, and then we look for in the DNA all the mutations that are in there, and then we decode basically the patterns of those mutations. What we're looking for here is the patterns tell us how the bacteria was evolving in the past, and then basically we look at those patterns of past evolution, and then we use our proprietary deep learning models to make predictions of future evolution, and then turn that into actionable predictions for the clinicians to use. We can do this for pretty much any bug and any drug combination in the future. The infectious disease specialists can then use these predictions to then optimize to targeted therapy with the hopes of reducing treatment emergent resistance and reducing treatment failures in the patients who need it the most. But really, our vision here is something way bigger than just this one test. Every test that we run gives us new proprietary data that allows us to continue to retrain our models and improve them, but also allows us to expand to other indications. Really, what we're doing here long-term is operationalizing the first time, linking pathogen genomics with care decisions and actual patient outcomes, and that's where things get really, really exciting. You can think of this as we're actually making foundation models for how bacteria evolve in the first place. That opens up a lot of exciting opportunities. We can expand this to fungi and even viruses, and go into horizontal applications like biopharma and drug development, and even predicting pandemics.
So a little bit about our founding story. Kalen and I first met as friends in grad school at Tulane, which was really important. I was in the bioinnovation program in Dr. Zach Purcell's lab. Kalen was in the biomedical sciences program in the lab of Dr. Lisa Marisi. And after a couple years, our research started to overlap. And she came to me with the idea of, hey, can you adapt this pipeline you built for cancer genomics to look at mutational patterns in bacteria? And I was like, yeah, that seems like a really interesting idea. And those initial results were super exciting and showed us the possibility of spinning this out into a clinical diagnostic and not just a cool academic project. And soon after that, I actually myself was afflicted with a life-threatening infection in the hospital. And that kind of showed us cracks in the system firsthand. So it really increased our drive, and we ended up founding the company about a month later. So where are we now? We spun out the company, we moved to San Diego, we joined Johnson & Johnson's JLab's incubator. We formed critical partnerships with the Ochsner Health System and University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. We expanded back to New Orleans and opened our clinical lab at the New Orleans Bioinnovation Center and expanded our team to 10 people. We've raised $3 million from grants and our incredible investors. So what really helped us turn the translational research into a company? People often think it's kind of like a straight line. You have a cool idea, patent, license, get funding, start the company. But in our experience, the company really became real when our relationships started compounding. So with our mentors, investors, health partners, clinicians, they really helped us pressure test the science and decide where the clinical need actually was and to help validate that. And so the biggest lesson for us is that a novel scientific insight in itself is not sufficient to create a company. You really need to work with people to determine who is actually feeling what exact problem, and really important how decisions actually get made in the real world. And so that's helped us translate our science into something that's usable and actually needed.
And so I want to tell a couple stories that really highlight this lesson for everybody, because I know a lot of people here are probably in that critical phase where you maybe are doing something translational and you might be thinking about, do you want to go down this path that everyone who's talking to you here today went down? And so obviously you hear hammered a lot that customer discovery is so important because you need to find your need. But I want to talk about a different way customer discovery was important for us. So we went through I-Corps when we were still PhD students, which was really incredible for talking to customers, actually finding that need that Leo was talking about. But it was also important for a different reason. So we went to something called ID Week, which is one of the biggest infectious disease conferences in the world. And there, Leo and I were had a very specific motive because we wanted to talk to any infectious disease specialist we could talk to understand their need, but also we were trying to find a potential collaborator because we really needed access to data to build up this product. We were very lucky. We ended up finding Dr. Ryan Shields, who's the director of antibiotic stewardship at UPMC, and he's also one of the biggest KOLs in the field of treatment emergent resistance. We ended up following up with him after ID Week, and he was incredibly interested in what we were doing because he happened to be wanting to solve this problem that we were trying to solve for many years. So after that, we ended up forming a small collaboration, did a couple of little pilot experiments, and after just knowing him for a few months, after meeting in fall of 2023, we ended up applying to our first NSF Phase 1 STTR together. We ended up getting funded, and we basically turned that small collaboration into a partnership with UPMC and having all of our foundational models trained on their massive data set. It turns out they've been collecting for over 15 years everything that we needed in terms of bacterial isolates. So this was critical in terms of building our product. After that, after working together for almost 2 years, Ryan actually ended up joining our team as Chief Medical Officer. That was critical because Ryan is one of the biggest leaders in this field, and he adds that clinical trust that we need to bring this product to market. Also, Ryan's probably one of the most connected people I know, and he's now opened doors to us to other flagship systems beyond Ochsner and UPMC that we're now working on right now to start working on and replicating the work we've been doing at those initial foundational systems, hopefully in the next couple of months that we're really excited about. The key lesson here is that those initial relationships kind of turned into something that we couldn't really build alone. And when Ryan was leaning into us, we followed that, and it ended up compounding into something that was pivotal for the company. And that really happens with fundraising too. So when Ryan opened up doors for us and he started leading to be that credible person opening up doors for us, we saw the same thing in a different experience with fundraising. So Leo and I did the Rice Business Plan competition in spring of 2024, and as you can see in this picture, we ended up doing pretty well. We got in 4th place in one of the toughest business competitions in the world. But what you don't see in this picture is we actually got a lot of no's from this competition as well. There were a lot of investment prizes that we didn't get, a lot of people that passed initially, but we kept following up. We ended up building trusted relationships over the next year with those people, and one of the judges ended up leading our pre-seed round, and from just Rice judges alone, we got an additional $400,000 of investment. So you can see how building those trusted relationships and people vouching for us throughout that community, even though we didn't get the yes the first time, ended up getting that massive momentum that wasn't in one moment, but compounded over time. So I know starting a company may sound very daunting. You have no idea what you're doing in the beginning. We had no idea what we were doing in the beginning. So if you don't need to start by knowing all the answers, but you should start by talking to people who've done it before, talk to people who are experts in your sector, and then lean in and follow where the trust is building, and that's really where things start to becoming real. And so I'll end with just this, that we really, like I said, had no idea what we were doing, but I always love, and Leo also always loves, lending our experience to others. So if you're thinking about building a company, I have our contact info up here, and we do always genuinely mean it. If you think our experience can be useful to you and you want a sounding board, please connect with us, and we're happy to be those 2 first relationships you start building. Thank you, guys.
Questions for Kalen and Leo?
Hey, very inspirational. So I wanted to ask you about pivots, because people hear this a lot. You know, when you're a startup, you have to be nimble and pivot, and that's true, especially when you're getting feedback from potential investors of no, 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 no. It can be very damaging to the ego, damaging to belief in yourselves. But at the same time, over pivoting risks losing sort of a North Star, a central tenet of what you've built. So if you could comment on how you navigated through that is never a broad path, but can be as narrow as a knife edge. How do you stay true while still also recognizing feedback from the community around you?
Yeah, I think that's a really great and very important question. I think that the way I like to think about this, and I think it's actually why academics and PhD students specifically make such incredible founders, because I think that feedback are data points. And I think it's what your most important job, or one of your most important jobs as CEO, and especially or founders, is you're gonna get so much advice from so many people, and it's filtering that down and figuring out what's important and what resonates. And if you listen to everybody, you're gonna just be going everywhere and never actually making any progress, because you're just not gonna go forward, you're just gonna keep going side to side. And so I think that the way I think about it, especially when you're thinking about business model and you're talking to customers, or even when you're thinking about investment and what's good traction, what's a good inflection point, is it's data points, right? So if you see a pattern, that's probably real. So if you're seeing the same multiple people across different sectors telling you the same thing over and over again, that's like an N of 15. Yeah, that's probably something you should start to think about and listen to.
Yeah, I really like that analogy of the data points, because in reality, you will get investors and mentors and stuff who say pretty drastically different things. And so the more that you can fit that curve to that advice is really, really useful.
Hey guys, great presentation. I love the story about turning customer discovery into more than just product development. I'm curious, so you had a bunch of people that told you no, they converted to yeses. What did you guys do to kind of keep them warm and kind of keep them interested?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because I think that there's a balance between that. And I think that often what I do still to this day, if an investor says no, I kind of categorize on like, why was it a no? Is it a true fit problem? Like, do we not fit in their thesis? If then, it's probably not worth continuing to follow up there. And then sometimes I even ask like straight up is there a specific thing that you would want to see to re-engage? And a lot of times they will give you specific things to re-engage. And then that also, to John's question, adds more data points. So if multiple investors saying, yeah, I want to see your first hospital contract signed, then okay, that tells me that's probably our next key inflection point. The other thing, I think with the rice stuff, a lot of them, I think we were just too early for a lot of them. And so I just would send them updates. And I used to do like an investor newsletter. I don't do it as much anymore for people who aren't invested in us, because I think I like to just reach out personally now, especially as we're gearing up for a raise, and just say like, hey, want to let you know we've done these exciting things. We're thinking about maybe raising in the next 6 months. Would you want to catch up for 30 minutes and give me some feedback? And that's really helpful, and I think it just to keep people warm.
And I would just add that it's obviously very hard to be an entrepreneur, but if you spend some time reframing the no's, and like what's that saying? Like, think about how good it could go instead of how bad it could go. Like, reframing, like, the actual fun part is the pivot. So even no matter what your initial idea is, that's not what you're going to go to market with. It's going to change a dozen times. Learn to really love the pivoting and get that feedback, because that actually keeps things fresh and you're always working on something new, even besides what you originally started with.
Hi guys, I just want to comment on how excellent your presentation was today. For someone who was there in the very beginning and seeing this power team come together and then hearing that presentation about the insights that you've gained, one of the key characteristics we look for in people when we decide to support them is their coachability. And I think that this presentation and what you've learned over the last couple of years demonstrates how you exude coachability, the ability to take in all of these nuggets of all of these people who have an opinion or a thought about what you're doing, and then synthesizing that into actionable things that you can do to get traction and continue your momentum is nothing short of outstanding. So we're really looking forward to the development and your growth, and looking forward to continuing to support you so you can come back one day and share your great news about your big exit. So congratulations.
We appreciate it, Kimberly. Thank you.
Thank you both.